the overall development of your program. So the way that I'm going to go through this, I'm going to talk kind of in reverse order of what it says there. I'm going to talk about mindset first of our catchers, then go through our throwing program with some video on that, then go through drills, and finally kind of touch on the last piece there from an arm care and strength conditioning piece. The mindset, I wanted to start with it first. I was kind of going through this presentation and I had the throwing progression first, but as I'm kind of preparing it in my head, I said the mindset's probably the most important piece to this. Because I think as a catcher, if you haven't made the decision in your head to make every single throw that you make count, you're trying to put all of your effort into a throw that's going to happen 3-4 times a game, talking about that throw to second base. If that's the only throw that matters, you're not prepared to make that throw with arm strength, with accuracy, with quickness, if you haven't bought into all of your other throws. The other piece to having a throwing mindset, with the catchers, we all want a catcher who's kind of a field general, a leader, gets out there and sets the tone for the game. So in your heads right now, picture that team you play against with that really good catcher. He's always back picking, he's firing the ball back to the pitcher, he's got a really good arm down to second base. You're already on the defensive as a coach, and no game situations have happened yet. Now conversely, on that team, if you're the pitcher on that team, if you're the defense on that team, you're in a position of confidence. We've got this guy behind the plate, and he is completely shutting down the running game. The ball's in our pitcher's hand quickly, pitcher's pitching with tempo, and it starts with the way the catcher throws the baseball. Now I know there's a lot to throwing the ball back to the mound. There's a huge mental piece for some guys. Where they kind of put that air on the ball and we're not trying to throw it 100 miles an hour over the pitcher's head into center field. But I'll tell you what, catchers who kind of grab that baseball and fire it right back to that pitcher do a really, really good job of developing good throwing actions. I'm throwing the ball with a purpose. Their pitcher has the ball in their hands quickly to be able to make another pitch. And what we've done is we've taken kind of the passiveness out of that position and flipped it into a position of confidence. That catcher who's kind of got that mental block and lobbing that ball back to the pitcher is in kind of a soft position right there. He's unsure. I don't want to throw this ball over the pitcher's head. I don't want to do this. Those are really negative thoughts that we wouldn't carry in the batter's box, right? I don't want to strike out. I don't want to get out. No, I'm going to have a great at bat. I'm going to see the baseball. I'm going to make hard contact. We want to put it in a positive framework. So as a catcher, a little thing like throwing the ball back to the pitcher can set a tone for a number of different things for your team. So I really, really encourage catchers at a young level, every time you're throwing a baseball, fire that baseball back to the pitcher. Throw it with a purpose. I remember my pitchers in high school getting so mad at me because we had two soft throwing lefties that were like 75 miles an hour, and they're like, stop making me look bad. You're throwing the ball harder back to me than I can throw it to you. But I'll tell you what, they both played Division I baseball, so maybe it motivated them to throw the ball a little bit harder. And it's something that for me as a thrower, at a young age, every throw that I was making was trying to develop a good throwing action. So having a catcher-specific throwing program. So with any coach, with any baseball program, they've talked about it in a number of different presentations here, your practice outline, you go through your stretch, throwing program. And I think it's one of the number one skills that we have to teach when guys get to college, and one of the number one things that I see a huge spectrum on at the high school level and the youth level is the way guys play catch. You've got really, really great programs where the guys are on the line, they have a throwing progression, they go through different drills, they work on throwing with a purpose to get better at making throws. There's other programs where the guys kind of walk themselves down the line. One of them's got a baseball in his bag. One of them grabs one out of the bucket. It's a pitcher throwing with an outfielder. The outfielder's working on his knuckleball. The pitcher's throwing submarine. You've got a catcher down the line throwing with an outfielder. They throw for 3 minutes. You good? Yeah, you good? All right, let's go. And they're done. 2-3 minutes, no one got better at throwing. So throwing is not to just kind of warm up. It's not part of like get to the field and hang out. Throw with a purpose. So having a throwing progression allows us to be in a position where each drill we're doing is working on part of the throwing motion. It's also putting us in a position where we're building arm strength and we're creating healthy habits with our arm. So what we do with our throwing progression is we try to start with the smallest thing you do as a thrower, the simplest motion that you're going to make, and work back from there. It is far more complicated to change the direction of a 90-mile-an-hour fastball and throw a moving runner out at second base than it is to play catch from 2 knees at 10 feet. So we want to have guys have mastery of really, really simple mechanics before we move on to game speed things. There are certainly going to be players at the college level, and I see them all the time, when we put them through those first set of drills that I'll get to with our hand isolation and our arm isolation, they're like, "Coach, this is a little league drill, why are we doing this?" Well, you stink at it, so maybe you should do it a little bit more, because I think with each of these drills, if they feel easy, good. When I pick up a baseball to throw, this is still the way that I want to work through my throwing because it's become routine. And with each one of them, there's kind of a mental check that goes through that help me get ready to eventually make those throws. So here are the drills that I'm going to go through. I'm going to move right on to the video of them. So our arm isolation. I like doing kind of 2 different versions of this. You know, you have your traditional wrist flip, and then you've got kind of your 90 degrees. So with the wrist flip, what I want guys to feel when they're doing this, I want them to feel the back of the baseball. So anybody who's ever thrown a baseball that's had backspin, that's had carry, that's stayed in a straight line, as if you were throwing a baseball down a narrow hallway, we want to keep the flight of that baseball true. And it starts with your hand position. So as I go through my arm circle, getting to here is key to making that ball go straight. I use my lower half and my shoulder and made that arm circle to generate speed, but if my hand is in a weird position at the end, I lose accuracy. I lose ability to control the baseball. So if we just do a simple wrist flip, our hand behind the baseball, arm out in front of our body, arm, elbow ahead of our shoulder, hand outside of my shoulder, I'm just in a good position to start, and all I'm going to do is work wrist and elbow right here and stay behind the baseball. Really, really simple. We tell our guys we don't want to see T-Rex arms, so we don't want to have recoil where we're doing this, and we don't want to shoot free throws, so we don't want to see arc on it. You want to see them throw downhill, straight line, almost like they're putting their hand in their partner's glove. With this as a catcher too, I don't have it in this video, but I'll start going through it. You can do a couple to work on the throwing action, right? I'm just working out what my wrist does. I go through this for about 10, 15 throws, and then I can add my hands in. Because one of the things you do as a catcher is you change the direction of the baseball. So as I'm doing this, and you'll see in some of the other videos, what I can then do is catch and exchange. Come right here. Partner throws me, catch and exchange. I can work my exchange every single time I catch the baseball. Because you're going to play catch for about 10, 15 minutes now. Imagine if every time you catch the baseball, you work your exchange too. So now you get in the game, and that runner's going in the 7th inning, you have exchanged the ball plenty of times throughout your weeks of practice to be ready for that. I skipped over talking about it, but the next place I would go with this is I would get to 90 degrees. And I've added this one in since I've started coaching at Bates. I really, like this, but then I went to 90 because there were guys that had a hard time staying on the baseball. They had a hard time with what their arm was actually doing from this external rotation piece. They'd pull their elbow in and kind of push as they've thrown. So picture maybe some of the guys you work with, that guy who makes an arm circle and his arm comes in here and pushes. He's having a hard time pulling through the baseball, getting full range of motion, getting full arm speed because he's coming in this way. So if I get out to 90 degrees and just take my arm here, my shoulder stays square, now I'm working on kind of this action with my arm where my shoulder's more involved, my hand has to stay behind it, I also have to stay through my target. What a lot of guys will find with this drill is they'll start pulling across the ball. They'll do this, or they'll do this. So they'll either push it, or they'll pull across it. And what we're trying to feel is hand contact behind the baseball for the longest period of time. Right? I go through all this. The longer my hand stays on this ball, the more that energy I've created stays behind the baseball going to the target that I'm trying to throw to. So we work our hand isolation, our upper body, or our arm isolation. Now I want to go to have some kind of upper body isolation. I want to start to work my arm circle and really focus on what this part is doing in the throwing. So I have a 2-knee version, a 1-knee version, and a feet squared. You do not need to do all 3 of them. One of the things I like to do with our guys is give them a little bit of freedom for their development as a thrower. There are certain players that cannot stand throwing from 1 knee. It messes with them, it's an awkward distance, and you never make a throw from a knee in a game. So I'm not going to force anyone to throw from a knee. But I do think a really good thrower who's just kind of got easy arm action can throw from one knee, two knees, on his back, whatever. So it's not necessarily something everybody has to do, but I would put it in there to start so that guys get the understanding of what they're doing with one knee and two knee with a little bit simpler of a base. So with our one and two knee, I start to make my arm circle now. As a catcher, I want all my exchange to happen above my shoulders. So I'm never doing anything kind of in the middle of my body. My hand is never below my shoulders. Ball is always taken out of my nose and coming up out of my glove. When you think arm circle as a catcher, think about your hand making the arm circle. So rather than it being an arm circle, it's more of a hand circle. When we think arm circle, I'm picturing pitcher's arm circle, that long arm swing down here. As a catcher, it's not an arm swing, right? It's a much simpler, much shorter hand action where my wrist is kind of making that arm circle. Everything's working right in this area here. Get up on one knee, and again, from one knee, one of the drills, and I'll show it from feet squared, but you can catch and exchange and get to that throwing position. As I move through the rest of these, every one of them will have that get to a throwing position, pause, and then throw as a variable to the throwing progression. I like guys to be able to catch and exchange the baseball and feel where their body is. Can I throw from that position? Is that a throwing position, or do they get to something like this? Right? They're not going to make a throw from here. Their hand has to move to throw. So they're already kind of in a non-athletic, non-throwing position from their exchange. So I think I put in this one, if not, it's in the next slide. Yeah, so you can see as I'm catching the baseball, I'm getting to a pause at the top, and I'm throwing from there. Love doing this drill. So we go through just kind of working on our arm circle, they get a feel for where their hand is, then it's catch and exchange. From right here, deliver the baseball. And you can add tempo to that. Stole this a little bit from watching Coach Strickland do it. Have your guys compete with it. See how quickly your catchers can get the ball in and out of their glove. So once they've done their pause, catch, pause, and then throw, play quick catch, just like your middle guys do. So middle infielders working their hands, quick catch, do it with your catchers. See how athletic they can be. It gets them feeling just kind of the ease of having an arm action, and ease of letting it go, and takes the thought out of it. Keep progressing back with our throwing. Now we go from isolating our upper body, kind of having our athletic base on 2 feet. Now we're going to work to our power and our throwing position. So as a thrower, every thrower is going to get to some variation of this position with our glove side facing our target. We want our guys to start there. The cues to this one, we want to make sure that my lower half opens up while my upper half stays closed. So as I'm making these throws, I'm telling my guys it's okay to take a step with this foot and open up that toe towards your target. What we don't want to have happen is this kind of action where I've completely rotated towards my target too soon. Very similar to hitting. Similar mechanics to throwing and hitting. So if you're a guy that's a really good hitting guy and you're trying to teach pitching, you can put a lot of the hitting mechanics that you know to use with your pitchers, and then translate that down to a simpler version of throwing with your infielders, outfielders, and catchers, because the mechanics are very similar. What I'm trying to do as a thrower is I'm trying to get my energy to my backside as I load up and get in this position, and now I'm trying to transfer it to a target out ahead of me. So my weight's on my backside, I've loaded everything up, I'm going to take that throw, I step, hips come through, arm comes through, deliver the baseball on time to my target. So you can see now that we're adding our feet, we're taking a small step with that front foot, we're making an arm circle, going back to that very first drill, I've got all kinds of time for my hand to get in a bad position now. And I'm going to get to the end of this throw, and if my hand's here, if my hand's here, I don't have feel for accuracy. And where you see this a lot, we do kind of our high school and youth stuff, we work with guys and they play catch. They do their first couple drills, and they're like, Coach, this is stupid, this is easy, I can do it. You get them back to 90 feet, all of a sudden balls are going everywhere, right? It's just an absolute liability nightmare because you're worried about who's going to get hit with a baseball. I'll always stop our kids at our clinic and be like, how many of you are going to make a throw from this distance in a game? And none of them raise their hand because it's like a 60-foot throw. Right? All of the throws in a game are going to be farther, more difficult, and yet they can't play catch without taking a step from a short distance because they don't have an understanding of the foundations leading up to it. So we want to make sure that each throw is made with the component of accuracy first. Tell your guys to pretend like they're throwing in a little hallway. right? They've got kind of walls all around, and that ball cannot do this. Because when they make those throws in the game, we want it to be accurate. So our power position throwing right here. And I'm not adding anything with my exchange, I'm not adding anything with my feet to start. I'm simply working on what my hands are doing and the throwing action with it. And then we'll go to the next version of this, where I'm going to get my feet and my exchange involved. So I'm athletic, I'm ready to catch. 1-2 with my feet, I'm going to throw in position, and then I can deliver the baseball. So now we're putting together not only our hand exchange, but I'm putting together our feet exchange too. So it's working on general athleticism, it's working on being accurate, and it's working on a throwing motion. And we have only progressed, I'm maybe 60 feet from my target right now, so if I go much farther than that, my arm's going to hurt. But we're kind of right in this area here where I can start to practice good footwork. So I'll get into footwork drills as we move through, but basically what I'm looking for with footwork for our catchers, I want to establish my right foot. If I establish my right foot, I'm in a position to deliver the baseball. Guys get caught up in being quick and hopping and jumping and how fast can I get my feet down? Fast is usually slow. When guys think fast in their head, it's heavy, it's slow. It's a hop, right? I'm going to get my feet down. If they think soft and quiet, it's generally quick. Just think of a swing. If you told your guy to swing as hard as he could, what's he going to do? His arms are going to straighten out, his upper body's going to tense up, and his swing's going to look like this. If you told him to think hands, think quick with your swing, be quiet with your swing, be under control, it's a smooth, quick swing with good bat speed. We want our feet to be quick but soft. So establishing my right foot is the key to this whole thing. So I'll go back and play this while I'm talking about my right foot. All I'm trying to do is take my right foot and basically put it underneath my chin. So I know some guys on the side here, but I'm just going to take my right foot and I'm going to put it right down under my right chin. It's just under my chin. It's just one step with my right foot. As soon as my right foot's underneath me, I've got my base. I've got my backside to throw from. If I have my backside to throw from, I can deliver the baseball. So we don't need to get caught up with jab step, replace your feet, hop step, whatever you want. Establish your right foot. Get your right foot down. As soon as it's down, you can throw. It should be out in front of your body, because if it travels backwards, I'm generating energy this way to then have to transfer a different direction. That right foot is going to step towards wherever I'm throwing a baseball. Third base, second base, first base, wherever it is. So as long as my right foot is getting a little bit of ground and establishing my backside towards the target, I have a base to throw from. So that part of that drill is really good. This drill right here was a huge key to me when I started playing pro ball, getting a better feel for exchanging the baseball. I loved kind of walking through it and having time to be able to gather four seams. So with this drill, I'm going to take a step with my right foot. It's going to be a little bit bigger than when I exchange to throw a guy out. But what I'm doing now is I'm taking my hands, they're close to my body. This is going to simulate where I want to exchange the baseball, close to my body versus going out and getting it. The other thing this does is as I'm catching the ball and exchanging right here, I've got all the time in the world to get four seams and get to a good position. There's no rush to this. But what have I done? I've caught, exchanged, stepped, and thrown. So I've taken the 2 steps that I'm going to take to make a throw to bases, but I've done it in a much more controlled atmosphere where I have control of the timing of it. The timing aspect of being fast makes throwing to second base, makes throwing a runner who bunts out, a ball in the dirt that you blocked, and throwing a runner out hard. There's no runner going anywhere. You can take all the time you want and deliver an accurate throw. Having to do the speed part of it is challenging. This is a way for us to throw it down, slow it down, while also practicing the footwork that goes with it. And believe it or not, this is one of the ones that's really hard to teach guys. They have a hard time with the mechanics of it. I'm like, take 2 steps. That's all you're doing, take 2 steps. So ball's in my glove, I caught it, I'm gonna hang out with it, step, exchange, step, throw. And what they're able to do is work on kind of that part to the throwing. Sorry, not there yet. They can slow everything down while gaining that ground. So they should be back close to 90 feet now. So this is kind of our 70 to 90 feet where I'm working this kind of walking action towards my target. It's a pretty decent throw. I've got to get it there a little bit. So I want to have momentum with my feet. Those first couple drills were short. We don't need as much momentum. The distance are shorter. So we don't need to put as much of an emphasis on using our legs to get the baseball there. Now that we back up distances, I want to make sure I can get the baseball to my target. The next place we would go with this, we would take kind of a modified crow hop. So my 70 to 90, maybe 90 to 100, I'm just going to shuffle my feet towards my target. It's a very, very simple crow hop, but what it simulates is I'm going to get here if I'm going to throw, and it's just going to complete that whole throwing action going towards your target. Always finishing with hand out front, hand behind the baseball. The farther distances you get, you can pay attention to the true flight of your baseball. Right? Any of us that were catchers remember those balls that got away from us, it leaves your hand and you're like, oh crap, because you can just see it doing this. It's going to kill your middle infielder, or it's sailing into center field. You can see it right out of your hand. You can also remember those throws that you got right behind, and you're actually watching that ball take off down the line of second base. Kind of get that feeling, wow, I got a pretty good arm today, because I got that backspin on the baseball and it's going to get there. So I'll show those one more time before I move on. But now that we're adding momentum to our throwing, we're adding direction, it gets important for guys to have a sense for their feet going in a straight line towards their target. As we start moving, we can deviate from that line. As our body deviates one way or the other, my arm's going to go with it. So we're trying to tell our guys that there's a straight line between them and their throwing partner or their target. I want to walk right down that line, or I want to shuffle right down that line. My feet move down the line, my hand and my arm move down that same line. So we've gotten back to 100, 110 feet, 120 feet with our shuffle, long toss. I'm saying this as a baseball coach, not as a scientist who's done research on that. And I think the crazy thing about baseball is there's a ton of people out there right now with a really vested interest in trying to find out why do injuries happen in throwers. And there's all kinds of different things that we're finding. Long toss is kind of one of those interesting pieces to it, right? Because if I go out and try to throw the ball as far as I can every single day, I'm probably prone to injury. So when I got to pro ball, they were still under kind of like the rehab model, where they would cap us at about 120 feet, 150 feet, which is the same thing they do for a guy rehabbing from a shoulder injury or Tommy John. They're limiting throws because there was research that the farther you went with throwing, the more stress it put on your shoulder and your elbow. So let's cap that and minimize that injury. But go out and watch, if you get to a big league game, college game, go watch a starting pitcher. How many guys you see that are foul the foul pole, airing the ball out, ton of air underneath it, and just letting it go, right? So I think as coaches, we should encourage our players at a young age to long toss. Stretch it out. See how far you can throw it. Have your partner back up. The first time I was ever told that was when I was 13, and I feel like a light bulb went off. Wow, you can throw it farther. The more you practice it throwing farther, the harder you can throw shorter distances. Like, this is kind of cool. I want to do this every day. So I had the type of arm where I could throw every single day. It never bothered me. I would long toss every single day before a game. It was almost kind of a contest to see how far I could throw the baseball. Could I stand at home plate and throw it out to left field was always a goal line. Could I stand right there and crow hop and get that ball over 330? But I wanted to let it go. And I think that each player is going to be different with their arm. There are definitely going to be guys that are hanging the day after playing a game, the day after long tossing. I don't think going to those guys and saying, come on, I'm going to force you, you got to air it out, you got to long toss. But I think the mindset as a thrower comes into play here. Am I throwing to get better at throwing? Long toss, without a doubt, is a component to getting better at throwing. In our program, I want guys to air it out every day if they can. If they can't, it's got to be at least 3 days a week. So we're limited this time of year when we can start practice on the 15th, where we're in the cages sometimes. Our cage is a field house, we call it the cage. And then we've got turf fields outside. When we're outside on the turf, we're challenging our guys, go the length of the turf. Can you throw end zone to end zone? Can you throw the ball 300 feet with some air under it? And I have no issue at all with air under a throw. So I think as coaches, there's tons of information out there for you on this. Use it, read it, talk to your players as well. get a sense and have them have some ownership for their arms, for their arm care, because I have talked to the full spectrum of players at high levels. Guys that love the long toss, guys that hate it. I've seen pitchers who throw 95 miles an hour, one guy long tosses, one guy doesn't. Right? So the arm is kind of this, fickle thing where it's going to be different for every guy, but I think as you're starting it, taking a 12, 13, 14-year-old kid and saying you never have to long toss, you're going to put a cap on their development as a pro. So I would encourage guys to long toss. At minimum, we've got to be able to throw the baseball 127, 3 3/8, whatever it is, to home to second base. We've got to make that throw with a purpose every single day as a catcher. If your catcher is also a pitcher, there might be some differences there. But if your guy is a catcher only, they are making that throw every single day. 127 feet. Get the ball to second base. Be good at that distance. It's the farthest throw they're going to make. So be really, really good at that. Situational throwing drills. We put these in at the end of our throwing progression. So our throwing progression takes anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes. It can take close to 20 minutes if we do a bunch of these. So I try to kind of cover all the throws that a catcher would make in a game, with the exception of throwing the ball back to the pitcher. But we got bunts, picks, steal attempts, double play, block, and recover. By far and away, the one that you practice the most is our steal attempts. And probably doesn't happen quite as much as maybe a block and recover will. Probably about the same as a bunt. And pickoffs are one of those things that I think as coaches we put them in when we have the personnel to do them. Going back to that statement in the beginning, if you have that catcher who shuts down a running game, he likes to throw. You don't need to call a pickoff because he's already thinking about it. This guy at first base, I'm going to back pick him. He's got no shot because he's taking some stupid lead. He's not paying attention. He's jawing with the first baseman. Those type of catchers, having that joy of throwing, that confidence in throwing, really, really can change a game. Because then you don't have to put on your sign and make sure the catcher sees it, make sure the pitcher knows what's going on, make sure the first baseman knows what's going on. You can actually allow your catcher some freedom to make those calls. However, you're also going to run to the catcher who wants to pick a guy off the third base in a one-run game with 2 outs. So be prepared to kind of have to coach him as to when he should throw. But I'll tell you what, I would always rather coach guys that are overconfident, that want to be in the game, that want to do things, versus the timid player that we're trying to empower. Come on, go get it. Go embrace the game. Go take charge out there. So with some of these, what you can do at the end of your throwing drills, we come in from our long toss. We tell our guys just kind of get in a crouch. You start with the baseball and go through your throwing motion and throw to each other. We do 90-foot throws. So it's a shorter distance. They don't have to use their arm as much because they just long toss, but it really emphasizes quickness and feet. So we work hand quickness, feet quickness, and getting the ball to our target at a shorter distance. Allows them more chances for success. We do the same thing with my throws to third base. My target's over there. Make my throws there. I can make my pickoffs to first base, either from 2 knees or standing up. With that, double play, feeds, blocks, all that stuff can happen at the end of throwing progression. Real simple. So a steal attempt. So the drills that we teach for this, we break it into 2 components. We've got our throwing footwork, so what our lower half's doing, and we've got our exchange, so what our upper half's doing. And they've got to work on time, but they're doing different things. So with the throwing footwork, like I talked about, establish your right foot, put it underneath your chin, and get your weight into a slightly back or balance with my weight. Guys that try to be too quick with their lower half typically get out on their front foot. So they're usually here, they go to throw, they're somewhere like this. That ball's either going into center field or they're cutting it off and spiking it. I remember my very first game playing pro ball, we had a pitcher that was like 2.2 seconds to home plate. No lie, he was between 1.8 and 2.2. So there's 0 chance of throwing anybody out. But because it's my first game, I'm like, I'm going to throw everybody out, right? I'm going to throw a .9 to second base and try to get this guy out. I threw more balls into center field, 4 hoppers to second base, because I'm trying to do something my body wasn't capable of doing. And it got to the point where I was trying to get out and get the baseball, and I was so far on my front side, I had nothing to throw the baseball with. So as a catcher, we get caught up in kind of pop times and throwing runners out. There's more than half the equation they have no control over. They can own what they can do, and that's it. But that pitching piece to it, the jump the runner gets, the speed of the runner, the lead that the runner had, all those things are out of the control as a catcher. So having an understanding of that is really key to all this. So letting our body get into a position to throw and staying under control is key. With our upper half, we want to let the ball travel. The ball is going to travel to us faster than my hands are going to move the baseball, right? So I want to let that baseball get into an area right here where I can work with it. Think about it as a middle infielder, going to make a tag at a base. If I'm setting up at second base, ready to make this tag, if I wait for the ball to get to me and just drop my tag, it's faster than if I go get the baseball. Now the runner's sliding and I'm trying to sweep tag. It's the most annoying thing in the world as a catcher. You make a great throw, it's on line, he goes and gets it, guy slides into the back of the base. So the ball is going to travel faster, we want to let it get to us. The challenge becomes I've got to gain ground with my lower half while my upper half is staying back. So I'm trying to get this really dynamic motion going on where I'm gearing up with my lower half, but I'm not extending my arms to get the baseball. So let the ball travel to me. We want to take the ball out with our bare hand. This is my philosophy on it. I know the guys that try to sweep, pull the baseball to your ear. I've heard of guys trying to flip the ball to their hand. You see middle guys, they'll flip the ball. They look like the ball's never even caught in their glove. As a catcher, I've got to secure the baseball. You have no chance to throw a guy out if the ball's on the ground. So you have to get it into your hand. You have enough time to catch, secure, and get four seams. So this exchange happens in the middle of my body. I'm going to get my hand here, so I've got from here to find four seams. If I secure it with my bare hand, I've got to feel for that baseball from this point to here. There are going to be times you don't throw four seams. That just happens, but I still have a grip on the baseball that allows me to throw it. I don't have that same grip if I'm just trying to catch. So now I've got the ball here. Now I've got to get grip and throw on that flip. If I exchange here, I've got baseball in hand, time, grip, and throw. So securing the baseball with your bare hand, I think, is a key point. We have to emphasis a lot with catchers because they want to be quick. They see the guy going, I've got to get rid of the baseball. You've got to get the baseball into your hand before you can throw it. So that ball goes to your glove first. I've got to get it to my hand. I've got to get it out of my glove. I've got to get it on the way. Secure it with your bare hand in the middle of your body. Your hand makes the arm circle, and the ball goes up out of your glove. So what are our drills to work on this stuff? So we start real simple. First thing I would do is I would take a baseball, and I'm going to put 3 baseballs right here. I want our guys to feel the baseball being right underneath their chin. So it's a stationary baseball. There's no movement. I don't have to worry about anything with exchanging. I'm just going to get right into my block and throw stance. And I'm going to take my right foot, put it underneath my chin to wherever the baseball is. So I start right middle, ball's here, baseball underneath my chin, pick it up, put it down. I replace my foot with where the ball was. Put the baseball back down, I work to my right side. Same idea, I'm just establishing my backside. So this allows me to have control of my timing, and it's a really, really simple movement. By seeing that visual of the baseball right out front of them, they get a sense, all right, my foot's going to travel 3-4 inches. I've got it underneath my chin, which allows me to gain ground, and I'm going to make the simple action of taking my foot and putting it where a baseball is. So it's a really, really simple concept for a thrower to get. The next layer of that, I'm going to have my partner just kind of roll me the baseball. So now I got a little bit more movement to it. Ball coming at me, I have to wait now. Rolling the baseball forces me to wait for it to get to me. It's moving slow. I want to go get it. I want to go get it. I can't. Wait till it gets to right where that line was, where the baseballs that you put down. I'm going to pick it up and put it down. This helps me to be soft with my feet, gain ground, without having to worry about what my hands